Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This week is the first week of Pirkei Avot. It's customary that throughout the summer months we learn a chapter of Ethics of the Fathers each week. And this week we begin with chapter 1 and we'll learn the following Mishnah, a Mishnah that's considered perplexing and confusing to so many. Yosef ben Yochanan, a citizen of Jerusalem, says, "Let your home be wide open, and let the poor be members of your household. And you shall not engage in too much chatter with the woman." They said this regarding one's own wife. How much more so with another man's wife? From here the sages said, one who engages in too much chatter with a woman causes bad things for himself, neglects the study of the Torah, and in the end will inherit Gehenna. What's the meaning of this perplexing Mishnah? Yosef teaches us that our homes should be open wide. However, a lot of people have the attitude, well, yes, I open my home, my Shabbat table to my friends or to people that I want to get to know a little better. No, that's not what Yosef is saying. Yosef is saying that your home should be open to poor people. Let them feel like they're members of your household, that they don't even need an invitation. You need to make them feel so welcome that they can knock on the door anytime. Which brings us to the third clause of the Mishnah. How does it flow from the first two, opening your home wide, making the poor people feel like members? Picture a time when you and your spouse were having a moment of disagreement. Now, there's not a marriage on the planet where there would be no fights. How do I know? Our sages tell us. Kishem she'ein partzofein Shabbos, kach ein seven Shabbos. The same way that no two people have the same face, no two people have the same viewpoints. And so there's bound to be disagreements in any relationship, of which, of course, marriage is the closest relationship. Question is not, are there disagreements? Question is, what do we do with them? How do we deal with them? Now, most of the time, hopefully, we're able to resolve those disagreements with minimal friction. But sometimes things can get a little heated. You're in an argument, and then all of a sudden, a knock comes at the door. It's a friend who's popped by for a cup of coffee. The mood in the house quickly shifts. You and your spouse are all smiles, as if nothing happened 5 minutes earlier. By the time the friend leaves, you've long forgotten that you were in the midst of an argument when she knocked on the door. Let's take it a step further. Yosef's second teaching is that poor people should feel welcome enough to pop by unannounced. Poor doesn't only refer to material property. Some people may be wanting of familial love. They don't have a family. Others may be psychologically needy. They might just need a friend to talk to because they're going through a challenging period in their lives. And so now the poor person has rung the bell, just as the tone of the conversation with your spouse was just starting to rise to improper levels. The guest enters, you boil the kettle, and they begin to pour out their soul. And you were able to be there for them, to listen to them, to give them emotional support, perhaps even offer some helpful advice. And then they leave. You and your spouse look at one another in the eyes and realize that your issues are so minor compared to the major issues some people are dealing with in their lives, from problems with parnasa, livelihood, to health issues, to difficulty dealing with adolescent children. And you commit to one another that you will no longer sweat the small stuff. What then is the meaning of the third clause? When you open up your home and poor people become members of your household, you shall not engage in too much chatter with the woman. All the chatter, the futile conversations you have with your spouse that serve only to exacerbate conflict will be drowned out by the joyous sounds of hosting guests and overpowered by the acknowledgement that many of the disputes are based on what we would call first world problems relative to a lot of the big issues other people are struggling with in their lives. Let's continue reading the Mishnah. Yossi teaches us that if you should be careful about the chatter you engage in with your spouse, how much more careful must you be with someone who's not your spouse? What's the connection? When you tend to the emotional needs of other people, you have to be careful not to cross any lines of over-friendliness. If an individual is constantly in your home, you need to watch yourself to ensure that you're not showing them too much attention at the expense of the time and attention you're giving to your spouse. Yossi teaches that there are 3 potential ramifications when you aren't cautious with watching your behavior and maintaining those boundaries. First, you could bring bad things to your life. Bad things in terms of the strain you place on the spousal relationship. Second, even though you might be there to counsel and show compassion to the needy, you have to make sure that it doesn't distract you from your own avoda, your own service of God. You need to take time to learn Torah, to engage in self-improvement. You can't always be there for other people who needily want your time. You have to be able to separate time, dedicate time for others, but also dedicate time for your own spiritual growth. And then thirdly, if you were to get overly emotionally involved with the individual, it could lead to sin, God forbid. Hosting guests, our sages tell us, has greater spiritual power than greeting the divine presence. We learned this from Abraham, who ran to take care of the wayfarers, even when he was in the midst of a conversation with the divine presence, with God himself. May your home be open, and may it bring blessing to your marriage and family, materially, emotionally, and spiritually. Have a wonderful Shabbat.